Awesome. So we'll give people just a few minutes to come in here. I know we got 74 people marked as interested. I'm sure that'll be more than that. We'll give people a little bit.
Just getting slides and everything set up over here. There is a ton to go through.
A lot of good stuff today, right?
Yeah, a lot to share. I will try to not go into my 1,000-mile-a-minute voice to get through it all. If we have to go a little bit long, that's probably okay. Yeah,
You have
good chunk of stuff there.
some questions that people asked ahead of time that you're going to address today, but then for a Q&A after that, did you want to just read through chat afterwards, or you want me to collect questions
It's really
from
going to come
you that are
down
asked in chat?
to time. Probably though, at that point, I'll open up chat and yeah, what I would say is like I won't be able to monitor along the way. I know chat can move pretty fast. If there are any questions that come up that there seem to be consensus on me tackling first, happy for you to sort of start there, and then I can just go to chat again if there's time.
Okay, great. I'll use that same document the ones are on now. I'll just add some stuff to the bottom that I see if there's a lot of recurring stuff.
Sounds good.
All right, a couple more people trickling in, but it looks like maybe it's steadied a little bit, Clay. So
Sure, happy to get started because, like I said, a whole bunch to go through. Yeah, welcome everyone to uh, to a very annoying town hall scheduled on the opening night of football. Yeah, well, forgive us in Australia. Definitely not on top of my mind at the moment, but thank you for being here. Regardless, yeah, a lot to go over today, and thank you everyone for the AMA questions ahead of time. Yeah, let's kick this off with an update on the numbers. So we did cross that million download threshold. We're at 1.25 right now, which is a good good indicator of the funnel. Like getting people through the front door is working well. Where it's not so hot at the moment is on the through line beyond. Right now, monthly active users is sitting at around 143K. And then monthly active buyers at a little north of 11K. One of the AMA questions was around like, what is our actual DAU? The reason I don't list DAU here is, if you've got a bunch of people coming in through marketing, they count as DAU. Monthly active buyers is a much more solid indicator of like those who are active in the overall game ecosystem. It does align more closely with like sustained DAO. So people who have come back to the game are playing daily multiple days in a row. Lines pretty closely with, the other thing is like, show me how many people actually complete, the daily quests. So that's why we're targeting that number. And some of this comes through the funnel and what we're seeing. We've done a lot of work on the actual funnel itself in terms of the content of the game. And we've gotten a lot of confusing data back on it. The point at which people drop off seems to shift. When we make a change to something, we don't always necessarily see in the A/B testing a meaningful level of change, which led us to dive deeper and really work on a new hypothesis around perf that I talked a little bit in last town hall. What we've gotten out of that is it does seem that perf on Android is the biggest issue of the day. We did roughly a month of work with the MindLoader team, targeting the biggest areas of like quick performance wins. With the 1.25 release that went out on August 27th, the majority of those have had kind of a massive impact on retention. You're going to see this up ramp of D1 retention on Android from the 27th up to the 30th because it takes time for people to download the client, switch over from 1.24 to 1.25. But we've essentially seen a doubling of retention from D1 down to D7. There's still a lot more that we can do on this front, but there are larger fixes. So we're in process with MindLoaders getting those onto the schedule. But what we're hoping is we can get Android in line with iOS. Part of this is the performance fixes on Android also impact iOS. And as far as we've seen from the numbers, has also had a huge impact on iOS stability. I know on my iPhone, I would crash a couple times a day, which is not great. And since the 1.25 release, I've not crashed once. And the numbers we're getting back again on the data shows that that's coming through. And that's taken retention D1 on iOS from high 30s into the low 40s. And that's sort of, again, a more incremental improvement than Android. But if we can get Android in line with iOS, we're going to be in a much better place to sort of continue to scale. Some of this is going to come from where we tackle and target our marketing as well. But this transition on screen, from the previous slide to this, again, huge uptick further down the line, a lot more devices, in that high-end retention. And a lot of this just comes down to like how performant is the game. In terms of optimizations, I don't really want to read through all of this. I know there are going to be people who are recording and documenting, but a lot of very technical detail here on exactly what we went through in terms of optimizations and what those optimizations targeted. A lot. And yeah, has had a very good impact. The other thing that we've really been putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into is GOG economy protection. We've had a couple waves of massive bans as we've done deeper analysis into multi-accounting. We've tightened our controls on what we allow and what we see. This is always a balance between taking bad actors out of the system and doing our best not to impact good actors. Thousands of accounts, though, have been banned just in the last couple of weeks. And we are seeing an uptick in CS. Some of the people that we have targeted have very clear explanations of why they are not bad actors in the system. Where this most comes into play is people getting together to play at the same sort of Wi-Fi node. This has led to some false positives that we've worked through. In some cases, targeting some of our partners, like YGG members, who get together to play the game. It is an ongoing battle. It is never ending, but we've made some really big strides, particularly over the course of the last month in honing this in even further. And an absolute massive shout out to the community itself. The community's vigilance, the community sleuthing has let us shut down bad actors far faster than we could have if we were out on our own. So again, thank you to everyone who's played a part in that. Right now, one of the other big things is Ascension seals are out of the store. This is something that we are in communication with Apple about, so we're not in danger on that front. And it does come down to fraud. And this is something that we take very seriously. It is something that has plagued pretty much every game that has in-app purchases on mobile. And it is a really hard one because often the fraud leads to very delayed data identification of it. The community had raised this issue multiple times previously. We have looked into it, and even though the data up until this month had not shown massive refunds. That refund uptick has happened. It has been delayed in many cases, 60 to 90 days from when it actually took place. The good news on this is a lot of our enforcement actions have caught these people sort of in process and in act. There was a small window of danger with the APIs that they were exploiting, particularly on Apple, by creating a whole bunch of accounts that we have closed. But essentially, if they created a bunch of accounts, there was a delay in the API saying that they shouldn't be able to purchase because they were identified as being a potential bad actor. The fact that the community stepped up and asked us to look into it, even though we did not see the refund side of it, we continued the investigation, and a lot of those earlier ban waves hit these illegitimate actors. That doesn't mean that the damage was completely mitigated. We're still diving into the complete scope of it, but it could have been so much worse. So again, thank you to the community for being on top of things. Anything more here? I guess the only other thing to align with the community on is some of the next steps for us on this is going further with what people will have to do to sort of prove that they're a good actor. One of the things we're strongly considering is turning on face match through our Verisol tool, where if you want to go buy Ascension seals, things that basically carry you through to Web3, you would have to face match before you do this. We've wanted to avoid the friction because we believe, onboarding people into Web3, we need to reduce the friction across the board. But at this point, we believe it's going to be the next best option to keep the overall economy safe. So if you have thoughts on that, definitely drop it into chat. Now to dive into the road ahead, and we have a lot to cover here. One of the AMA questions was generally about timelines. Getting a new roadmap with dates, I would say, is something I can work on with the marketing team to get that published to Medium. In lieu of that, wanted to give you dates on where we're targeting right now. I cannot promise that these are set in stone because the builds are not finalized yet. But Frostmire is tracking really nicely. I'll go into further slides on some of the things you can expect from that. Currently targeting September 25th. Guild Boss is targeting September 18th. We had hoped to release that earlier, but that is not passed out of our internal playtests. I have held both Guild Boss and Guild Crafting back in alignment with Josiah and the Mindloader team. They're just not where they need to be. This initial September 18th release will be Web 2. Some of this is we want to get those systems out before things are minting and make sure that we've got them down pat. Because, there's going to be a lot that comes through on white paper promises, a lot of complexity on the Web3 side of things. The other thing that has delayed the Web3 integration has been getting our approach cleared through legal. We are cleared. We are now making progress on the implementation, but things were put on into limbo again with what happened on OpenSea essentially, and we've had to we had to take another look and dive into what we were doing with legal to make sure that we got across on that. But we're smooth sailing at the moment. Gruff's Vault. This is targeting October 2nd. So yes, there's Gruff's Forge, which we will also talk about a little bit later in the slides, and that release. And then Gruff's Vault is essentially the new term we're using is pledging, because it's not something where you have to lock away the GOG token, but it's something that you are going to pledge to keep in your wallet. We'll talk through the details there. Localization we talked about last time that is now live in Latin America. It's basically an A/B test. Half of players will have the chance to play localized, and the other half will play only in English, and we're going to see what localization does to retention in those regions. It's one of those where you kind of expect the A/B test to do much better, obviously with localization, but if we can get that proved, it makes it so much easier to get internal approval for the funding to go localize in so many more places. And then pets. We do not have a date yet for pets. It is in active development. Last time I went through a lot of the visuals in terms of art, we're in a really good place. Design is not something that we're aligned on yet. We're bouncing back and forth with MindLoader on how we integrate pets into the game itself. It has not reached a place where I'm confident sharing because we want further iterations on this. I would say at this point, the earliest would be in sort of mid to late October. It may push into November at this point for the pets release. All right, top line. Frostmire. So definitely very excited. I know the team is excited to bring Frostmire out. This is our first regional expansion. We've got a lot in store for it. One of the changes is going to be to Haven itself. So it'll get a frosty overhaul for Frostmire's release. Really, really pleased with where this is coming along. Other things that will change with it, the commander level cap will go to 120. We'll introduce a new gear tier level 7. So there was an AMA question around that. So that will come with Frostmire targeting the 25th. New narrative beats as you adventure through Frostmire, and then new adventure and challenge dungeons, as well as some special events in the mix along the way. But yeah, Frostmire is coming along nicely. Really happy with how it's looking, how it's playing. It is a real pretty and a nice contrast to some of our existing worlds. Really helps the Guardians pop in the environments. But still in testing. I'm spending more of my time playing on playtest, going through the content than I am on Guild of Guardians on live. It's challenging sometimes to support both. Guild Boss. So we've definitely made progress on Guild Boss and Guild Crafting. We've been playtesting this extensively internally with the team, obviously in QA as well, and with MindLoader. Where we're at the moment is in a pretty good place. We've got a few more changes in the mix that I want to see before we're going to be ready to go live. But right now we've got rotating bosses, so each week there'll be a different boss. Each boss has different crafting resources that it drops. Players are going to need to participate in order to earn crafting rewards for their guild, and there will be internal guild leaderboards with a mix of both rewards for the players as they participate and rewards going to the guild for player participation. It's definitely one of those where you want as many people in your guild fighting the guild boss as possible. As of last time, most things remain similar. So you're going to be able to battle the boss. You'll have tickets. You don't have to pay for any of the tickets to battle the boss. You've got boss skills that your guild leader can, or guild inspirations that your guild leader can activate to give you bonuses. If you've got a number of guild members attacking the boss at the same time, you enter into a mode where basically everyone does additional damage. You will have your own personal stats over there on the side, like I do here. Guild Boss will obviously be up for an amount of time. You've got the clock on the upper left-hand corner telling you how much time is left for this boss. There are different tiers of rewards depending on your damage. As your damage goes up, you're getting more and more rewards for your guild and for yourself. Each boss is going to drop different loot. Different loot allows you to upgrade and craft different pieces of artifact gear. Guild bosses are going to come from the actual end-level bosses in the game to start. We've got a mix of them already live and ready to go. Yeah, Guild Boss is coming along nicely. It does have a lot in common with Boss Rush, but having it not be other Guardians are fighting, having it be the bosses, it's settling into, I think, a better place in terms of feel than where it originally was at. In terms of guild crafting and artifacts, this largely remains the same. I already talked about the legal issues. So let's sort of go through screens on this. One of the places that we're looking at upgrading, this is still work in progress, is taking some of the icons out of the bottom and actually integrating them into the guild screen itself. So questing, forging, and guild power are automatically integrated in. You've got the guild boss in the lower right. This screen is still work in progress. There are things that may shift here. No, it actually threw me for a loop when it first happened. I'm like, where did all the icons go? But I also kind of like it. Feedback definitely welcome. In terms of what I talked about in Web 2 artifacts to start, you have a number of public artifacts that the guild can craft. These use the resources that you get from the guild boss fight to craft and to level up. Apologies for the translation. This is still in MindLoader AI translation across. If you're the guild leader or the lieutenant, you've got the ability to spend the guild resources from boss fights to further upgrade each of the public artifacts. As they level up, they improve in the stats and the skill that they provide to guardians. As a player, this is still where I don't think we've settled. There are things that I like about it and things that I don't. You essentially can rent the artifacts out from the guild. You rent them for short periods of time, so it's rent them to basically use to go to your end list, to do the boss fight. It is not going to be rubies, so I know this is a core concern. This is something that also kicked it back because MindLoader had initially proposed it being rubies. It didn't make sense for public artifacts of rubies to go to the guild to be distributed back out. A new resource is going to come into the mix essentially for renting from the guild, and it's sort of like a participation thing. If you're actively participating, you'll earn the resource that allows you to then use the artifacts. So it's not a free ride just for being in the guild, but it's not going to cost you rubies. And then as the player, once you've rented things out, you'll have the artifacts in your UI, which you can assign guardians to. The public artifacts are not going to be as strong as the Web3 artifacts. Some of the things that will be different is the level of the stats that the public artifacts provide. The actual NFT artifacts would allow you to deploy additional guardians into them. Potentially additional skills beyond just the one. But that will come out in the wash as we continue to work on design. You can have multiple artifacts in the mix that you can cycle through to then, again, assign your guardians to them. Depending on which stats the artifact boosts, you're going to want to obviously assign different guardians into the mix. Pledging. So in active development now, the web flows are developed, still in progress. And the tech team is working on the back end at the moment. This is where a lot more of the time in the development will go, because as we talked about in the earlier slides in terms of protecting the economy, this is something that has to be airtight. But it's progressing nicely. All the legal is approved on this front. Now it's just down to implementation. The only thing to mark, we have a whole bunch of bug rewards that have built up across multiple sales since staking was last live. The first staking tranche will not distribute all of those. Some of this too is we do expect as well as things go, we want to make sure that things are solid and secure. So we'll do smaller rewards to start in the first testing tranche goes live, and then they will escalate as we look to distribute all of those out through the new Gruff's Vault pledging process. As I talked about, localization is now live in Latin America, allowing Spanish and Portuguese. Really looking forward to the data to come back on that. We won't know. We won't know for sure how it's going. Probably for another 2 weeks, just to make sure that we've got enough cohorts and enough days to solidly be able to report on how successful localization is. Next topic. So another one raised by the community, guild member cycling. So for those who aren't aware of what happened, guild leader basically reached out to marketing, said, hey, I've got people I'm sponsoring. They're, sending NFTs to them. They're enlightening them. They're basically upgrading them, potentially minting them, and then sending them back my way. All of this very much above board, and they're donating to the guild. And at its face level, of course, donating to the guild is fine. The thing that was not clear is that all of them are donating to the guild by cycling through. This is absolutely against the terms of service. It is exploiting the systems to an unfair advantage. We have been working with the guild leader because they were in communication with us. Obviously, the communication could have been better both from our end and theirs. I was not aware of this as it never made it up to me until it actually blew up. So they are well ahead of where they should be as a guild in terms of guild leveling. What we're going to do to mitigate this, we are looking at adding additional protections into the system to prevent abuse. So one of those is when you join a guild, you have a 24-hour delay before you can participate in things like renting artifacts, guild boss fights. We don't want people to hop between guilds to basically take advantage of top players being able to be in multiple places at once. XP limit, each guild is going to have a cap on how much progress they can make from donations based on the max number of guild members. So this will shut down this loophole. And then the guilds, and it's not just one, that have taken advantage of this, will have progress rolled back. This is aimed for the September 12th update because it is a lot of back-end fiddling to get all the numbers back into line. There are some edge cases here that we're going to have to work through with them because this will reduce the max number of guild members and things like that. But it is in progress. Yeah, saw in chat, you should set back to 0. Some of this is, if it were clearly just malicious intent, that would be a lot easier. This wasn't just clearly malicious intent. Could the communication have been clear? Absolutely, but they did communicate with us what they were intending to do. So it's why the enforcement here isn't harsher. And yes, there's an argument to be made. But they have worked with us, through this. I know people are angry about it. But yeah, I don't think setting them back down to 0 would be fair based off of all of the information that I have. And getting this done before, guild crafting and guild bosses, it has also, some of it has exposed a very important vulnerability in the design. It has allowed us to fix this before it could have been so much worse once Web3 comes into play. So while it's bad, it could have been much worse if, identifying this had been delayed. The other thing to talk about here is these delays, in that we are looking at this in other places as well. With energy tokens, there is a 24-hour delay before they become active. We may be looking at adding delays into some other NFTs in the mix, potentially even Guardians, particularly if not using the Guardians in adventure mode, but in the competitive leaderboards, adding in delays before they'll be available for use in things like Endless or Boss Rush or even PvP. We're still not 100% across exactly what we want to do there, but that is in consideration. there were a number of questions around Gruff's Forge. Yeah, obviously a pretty big change to the system. I still have my ipso lorem in there rather than getting an actual title description. Overall, pretty happy with where the Forge release has been. We've been seeing a lot more people refining their gear overall. But like anything, that certainly hasn't been perfect. One of the questions is why endless coins? This is another place where we bounced around a lot. In our internal testing, we experimented with endless coins. We experimented with a unique currency similar to the refining stones. In the end, for balance, we went first with endless coins. We do hear the feedback that it feels like the costs there are too high. We don't want to just replace being able to mint or craft, new artifacts with just spending the same amount to reroll there. I think the balance may be too far in terms of cost. But we also aren't completely unhappy with where it's at right now, truth be told. Why not just guild coins? Again, that was the system where guild coins could be purchased, used to purchase the sort of specific endless refining elements. This is something we're looking at. The team and MindLoader are looking at the numbers, looking at the economy flow. Obviously, it's something that we want to sync resources out of the economy with, but the balance probably isn't right where it should be. Some of this comes to this last, why doesn't it just give me what I want? A lot of AMA questions around the amount of endless coins spent to still not get what players wanted. This is a tricky one to balance correctly. I don't believe we want the Forge to just be if you reforge, it gives you the guarantee of what you want. Changing it so that it skews that way, though, potentially during the reforge, rather than just getting the new stat, potentially having multiple stats to choose from. Even further, potentially consuming resources to skew it towards a result, all things in consideration. If you got thoughts on what you would like to see, definitely drop feedback into the team here. Yeah. Overall, pretty happy with where it's at. We may look to skew for a little bit of more ability to refine. In the old system, theoretically, players could have refined many more times a day. We did not see that happening in practice. So there are less opportunities to refine in the new system, but it's far easier. Do we need to offer more opportunities to refine each day? Potentially. That's something we may tweak. All right. Give me a sec here. I'm going to drink some water because my voice is starting to go, and we will dive into the AMA questions. All right. First up, Radiance. Radiance up failure rates feel way too high. Is the team considering improving this? Absolutely. As players ourselves, we see in the overall ecosystem, Radiance has done some good things, for sure. But there are issues with where it's at right now. What we're looking at to start, because it is safest, is basically Gen 2 Guardians having a different system for Radiance to help with these Radiance challenges. Why would we target just Gen 2 and not all Guardians in the ecosystems? Some of it is fairness. So a lot of people have max Radiance in the current system. If we dramatically change this, it actually devalues the value of their high Radiance Guardians. Is potentially better for the overall community, but it's something that we have to do very carefully, which is why, again, targeting Gen 2 first. If we come up with a good solution in Gen 2 that players generally like, that we agree is the right path, it makes it easier then to start a discussion and consultation with the community of like how we can bring those over fairly into the mix for existing Guardians. The other thing that has been keeping me up at night on this is we're definitely seeing some interesting, just psychology elements in recorded playtest sessions and just discussion amongst ourselves when it comes to sacrificing NFT guardians. What we are seeing, like in my in myself, like I've got a lot of guardians in my vault that haven't come out of the vault that I should absolutely sacrifice. Like as a min-max player, it is the right choice to sacrifice those guardians, but I am attached to them now, and I don't want to, even though I know I won't necessarily use them to play. And we've looked at this further. Actually, really interested to hear from the community if you're seeing this too. Of like, once I got that NFT, I don't necessarily want it to go poof, because yeah, collectibles. And in many cases, even though those guardians aren't guardians I'm playing, I'm still kind of attached to them. Like, I'm not playing with many of them anymore, but I did it once. It's hard. So some of that is looking at systems too, like in the altar of, can we have people sacrifice faceless guardians by having a recipe that lets you buy the floor to get the radiance you need without ever having to actually see the face of the guardian you're sacrificing? And are there things that we need to do to shift the target, like the way that you get radiance to more faceless NFTs? But yeah, that psychology of ownership, it's fascinating. Yeah. Would it be the same with things like cracked hearts? I don't know. Something we'll have to test. But overall, we are aligned with the community that Radiance isn't fully where it needs to be, and it needs to be improved. And yeah, we're going to keep working with you on it. Leveling, I know this sort of rolls off the bottom of the screen, but there was a lot from Josiah on this one. Is there any plans to improve the leveling system? If I want to reset a level 184 Guardian and use it to set a Guardian to level 160, the process is awful. Holding down the XP scroll over the extra minutes is really annoying. It'd be nice if you could simply click a button to increase, decrease level. If that isn't possible, put in 100k XP scrolls. 250 is way too small when you're dealing with the amount of experience involved. Totally agree. We've experienced this ourselves when we're in testing, adjusting Guardians, when we've been playing the special events. Absolute agreement from the team. And we've got a multi-prong attack for this problem. Short term, we've designed a faster way to level, basically 10 levels at a time with a press and hold functionality to speed things up. This includes skill leveling as well. This UX is in testing, essentially. There's been a little bit of back and forth because there were some issues with the initial internal playtests, but this is close. The other thing that we're working on is a redesign of the Guardian menu itself to improve this system, so it's easier to switch things around. This is at the paper design stage, so to speak, the Figma design stage, the mirror design stage. And it is in, I wouldn't say conflict, but definitely in competition with improving the reset system and Guardian leveling in general, and just how we move these around. In this, we're looking at potentially changing the system more dramatically to make it easier for people to use multiple Guardians. There is an issue right now where it makes too much sense to lock into 5. Reduces experimentation. We've been looking at other games in the genre. So these are, a little bit more potentially general system changes where you have a warrior equipment set. You have a mage equipment set that equips to the loadout to the type rather than individuals. Again, leveling up your guardians across class potentially versus individual guardians. This is all very high level, but yeah, there's a lot to love about systems like that. As we learn, like, we're not going to commit to a path until we've talked with you more, but I wanted to give you a sense of what we're thinking as possible adjustments to the system. Leaderboard rewards. So this is one that I don't think we'll ever stop talking about because, yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, and different approaches disincentivize different people. But for this AMA question, I was disappointed when I read that leaderboard rewards are going to be even more top heavy. I know it's important to have the top players earn a prize, but the majority get left very far behind. If this game becomes questioning you're a whale or not, then only whales will play, which in turn will cause whales to get bored if there's a very limited player base. Agree with the high level sentiment here, and it is going to take more experiments. And it is something that we're going to continue to experiment moving forward. It's definitely not set in stone. There is a catch-22 of rewarding more deeply into the player pool, as it does make it easier for bots or malicious actors to claim prizes. And when they do so, it harms the overall economy. As we improve our detection, this becomes less of a concern, but always a concern. There may be room, particularly once we get to face match, of rewarding more deeply into the pool, for people who have completed the face match. We've been banning actively banning large swaths of bad actors. And this is often why leaderboard rewards get delayed. It's not that we don't want to get them out on time. It's we're not going to send them out if we are still in the process of scrubbing. Obviously, the deeper you go, the more people you've got in the mix, the more scrubbing there is. Some of this too is how do we work in the mix to, again, reward more real players. Some of this has been shifting rewards more into guilds, so that ideally the guilds are doing that heavy lifting for us. If you assume that guilds have more incentive to have good actors in the mix, not always the case. And lastly here, this is a place where if the community has interesting ideas on alternate reward structures, we're more than happy to take the feedback and entertain. This will get even more important as GOG comes back online in the next leaderboard cycle as rewards. That's going to be more doable, not just because of Gruff's Vault, but also because of more options to spend GOG in the ecosystem. I think I got a slide on that. If not, I'll talk about that at the end. Exclusive gear. Question around, why are we cycling out Guardian gear in the store? If a player knows that a certain Guardian, which he does or doesn't own, could be good, but not without the missing relic, and the relic is not available in the store, he will simply not buy or not play it. Is that something that a player should look forward to in your minds? Decision paralysis is a factor in this. If all exclusive of gear is available all the time, it also leads to new players being overwhelmed just because what do you even start with? Like everything's there. Generally, for retention, having a smaller subset for new players to focus on is actually a benefit. We also agree that for longtime players, it means they can't always target what they need, and that can be frustrating. Generally, we've leaned towards bringing former gear back to allow that exploration. God, I'm using Explorer a lot here. We are looking at additional ways to give players access to exclusive gear they want all the time. Absolutely happy to entertain suggestions from the community. Just having all gear available all the time probably isn't a path that has a high possibility of going down. But if there are other suggestions in the mix, maybe. And maybe we need to cycle it a little bit more rapidly. I don't know. We'll see. Ruby economy. It has been communicated numerous times to various players that the Ruby economy is very bad and the rubies player owns are drained drastically. We heard that the situation with rubies is being looked at, reviewed, monitored. What actions were taken to address this, or what actions are being discussed to address this? So to be perfectly clear, the economy is designed to drain rubies. It is absolutely 100% supposed to be a net sink. We are aligned with the community though that the in-app purchase inputs for rubies are subpar. So the Ruby economy right now is doing a fairly effective job at being a net sink. There are points to be made. Is it too much of a net sink? It's not. Maybe. Some of that comes down to choice. Yeah, like, do you spend the maximum amount of rubies you can a day? Do you conserve them? But we are aligned that the inputs are insufficient right now, particularly once you get past the 2x deals, like the base Ruby in-app purchases, they're just subpar. As sort of like a min-max player, there's something that I would consider just for the Ruby to cost. So how are we going to tackle this? We are looking at the overall, costs slash inputs. One of the places, for instance, that we've been pushing Mindloader on is more inputs of rubies as players get through Frostmire, because it does take quite a bit to get to Frostmire itself. And we're looking at bringing more ways to get rubies through both the in-app store, basically introducing rubies to more bundles, and introducing rubies into Ares store via Web3 as a place where you can spend your GOG. Am I cutting out? Let me know. So what this would look like is we definitely want people to take GOG that they've earned and keep it within the ecosystem. So we're looking at introducing bundles that oh, it's possible. All right, my Wi-Fi looks good from my end. Can somebody in chat let me know where I last cut out? I can also start this slide over again. Whole bunch of people typing. Okay, if we sound fine, I'm gonna try and go again. You were looking to introduce. Yeah, so for Ares Store, some of the challenge here has been working out all of the edge cases to make sure that if we introduce something like a buy one bundle on Ares Store, there isn't a way to exploit it. So what we're looking at is essentially a whitelist of passports for players that we've identified as being good actors in the system. This is something that we can continuously update as new players come in, where there are going to be bundles on Ares Store that have basically very beneficial cost to output ratios. So a bundle that has, a very low GOG cost that gets you a bunch of rubies and other Web2 assets. Final available TBD. Elements like that. As well as just adding rubies into Ares Store, again, at a discount over what you could get for in-app purchases. And this is a place where we're going to essentially explore. And yeah, I guess like Max the Great, like some of it is like if spending rubies in Endless didn't make sense, people wouldn't spend the rubies. It's not just rubies, where there are a lot of other outputs from the Endless that absolutely makes sense going in after. Is it too much? Possibly. It's also one of those things that it helps make a little bit more sense to have an energy token to help mitigate those costs. It's not that that's the only way, to go get those extra endless tickets. Is it enough? I definitely hear the feedback. Some of what the Ruby economy would say right now, though, is that it is enough in terms of outputs, inputs and outputs. Do we need to offer more? It's something that we're going to continue to look at in terms of in-game rewards for rubies. But what we're not going for is a system where it's not sinking rubies out of the economy. At least not yet. Who knows? Maybe that'll change. All right, that gets us through all of the slides a little bit faster than I actually predicted. I don't know. Oh, yeah, absurd. I totally agree with the event. I spent way too many rubies re-rolling gear. And the future event, it's going to be a lot less than the last one. Still potentially too high, but much better than the last one. Cool. Zonic, did you have any questions that came through while I was chatting that I should tackle?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I have had probably more technical troubles than I've had in my entire life combined just in the past hour. Ask me about my stress level later. I was able to get like 2 questions into that document. One of them is from Sturb Kartoffel 98, this one that just posted a question here. So maybe we start with that one. But yeah, I had to like close down basically everything but Discord, and even then it's giving me trouble.
Oh, well. All right, so question there. Can we get in-game markets to sell gear for gems or gold? Rolling 50% gear that doesn't match what you need feels a bit of a waste. Lock gear to commander levels. Plausible. It's not on the roadmap at the moment, but it's something I'm happy to talk with the team about. Plausible. Wouldn't completely commit to it. Teo, would you be kind and just like paste them back in?
Yeah, anybody that has asked questions throughout this, I'm so sorry. I'm going to ask you to just kind of find them and copy and paste them again.
Immutable Clay, game director. What is the announce board in the guild UI for announcements? Moonlight asks, or somebody else can search for Teo's, would be appreciated. Will you ever implement summoning events on rotation with rewards, for example, dupes or rotation guardian or XP scrolls? Also, Yellowstone packages of 30 for 800 doesn't match the value of obtaining guardians. Current summoning stones are not being used much. Oh, I guess that was Teo's question. All right. I'm a little bit confused by the question. I'm going to go with one of the things that I've been wanting to do with summoning events. And that is, I would really love to experiment with a summoning event where in the altar, we basically have a recipe that's consuming most likely core guardians because we want to sync a bunch of those out of the ecosystem. That gets you summoning tickets. So something like that, absolutely plausible. Something that I have that top of mind. Yeah, an adjustment for the calling crystals, absolutely possible. It's something that we're definitely looking at after the JD sale. Even though it did a lot better than Tamamo, we're still learning. And cost is actually, top of our mind there. This is some of the challenge of sort of like bridging across. But like one of my points is like it's still very whale focused, and like in games like this, I know for me, like I'm more of a dolphin trying to min max, get the most return out of what I spend, and for that, it needs to be more efficient than it is right now. Will we see a max level of 100 for a period of time? Some games have once X amount of players reach max, and we will up the limit. Right now, we're looking at tying commander level max to basically major releases, so it'll go up with Frostmire. We're not raising the Guardian level cap with Frostmire as of right now, so that will remain the same. And some of that is, looking at doing that when it makes sense after a certain number of players have sort of hit the cap. When will guilds be able to talk to members? I do not have an exact date on guild chat. It keeps coming up in the mix. I will aim for the next town hall to get a more solid timeline on when that will be integrated. Do you think we'll ever see a way to level up energy boosters like Radiance them, or are we banking on mass adoption for energy boosters in the future? I feel like 14K is way too much right now, but way down the line, it might be too few. That's a really good question. I'm definitely looking at expanding the functionality of energy boosters to add more into the mix. One of the features that we're experimenting with right now is a 3x speed. Some of where I see unlocking that is things like Gruff's Vault. If you have pledged a certain amount, unlocking the 3x booster, potentially having an in-game bundle that unlocks it for a certain amount of time, even the possibility of, God, how much I hate them, but adding ads in the mix for people to unlock it, and having it be on the energy booster to start is definitely one of the things I would like to add. In terms of improving it, I share some of your concerns of if we add it and it sinks energy boosters out of the ecosystem, it helps in the short term, but if GOG, particularly once we get performance fixed on Android, is able to take off, it potentially leads to scarcity. At that point, we could always talk about what are scenarios for potentially adding more into the ecosystem, I suppose, to come back. Thinking very top of mind here. We'll take it under advisement. We'll talk to the team about what we could potentially do there. Okay, this is a very important question. I need it just for a little bit of goofy, but why do we have fingertips but not toe tips when we can tiptoe but not tip finger? That is the kind of deep question that is literally going to keep me up at night. So I both love you and hate you because my spicy brain is going to just be like, why? Why? I don't think there's an answer to that other than English kind of sucks as a language. Like it really does. Will we ever see a Web3 marketplace in game that would allow Web2 players to buy my Web3 NFTs? That would help huge demand for NFTs. It is something that the platform team is absolutely working on actively at the moment. It's something that through basically the tool sets that they're creating for games that they're building, that's going to come first on PC titles because you don't have to worry about the app stores for compliance there. Some of that would be a negotiation with the app stores. How do you handle the in-store marketplace and allow the app stores to get their cut? How does that shake out? Does that just mean that gas fees are way higher if you're doing it in game? So it's more efficient if you do it out of game? There are a lot of questions to answer there, but I do think it'll come with time. Atticus Ultimate keeps bugging in a lot of ways. Sometimes he keeps running, but don't go to the back to cast the ultimate. Sometimes the bombs stay still in the air. This is an interesting one. Atticus is in my lineup, and I haven't had any issues with him, but this might just be me min-maxing. Like I keep him in the middle position so he never has to move anywhere. I'll send this one through to QA to look more closely at, but I haven't seen it myself, so thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, I'm sorry, Teo. Yeah, I don't think you get the dolphin moniker. Strib, 60 calling crystals for one guarantee is crazy. Why not just keep it at 60? Yeah, something for the economy team, but I kind of agree. Would love a guild mailing system or even a message hold guild system, especially for leadership. And like, yeah, ads for rubies. Definitely something the team is considering. In terms of the message hold system, yeah, let me make sure I note that one down as well. Just give me a second.
Sounds like Clay's feeling generous right now, guys. So get your requests in.
Well, I'm going to say this is plausible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying I'm going to talk to people about it. I'm very careful with my words. Let's see. This is probably a good last question. What are you happiest about IMX GOG? What are things that they could work better on? A lot, like if you go way, way back in the day, and this is years ago, I was a big proponent of going for just an IMX token and having both GU and GOG be a part of that ecosystem token. I think with the proliferation of tokens that we've seen, it's just there's so much noise. And ecosystem tokens, I think, are just stronger in general. I think it's why IMX has done as well as it has. And they're more resilient. You've just got so many more opportunities for utility along with them. When it comes to both GU, like gods and GOG, there are advantages to having the game specific tokens in terms of it lets you have more flexibility with how they're used, how they're introduced, for various reward programs. That's let us partner with a whole bunch of different people that would have been harder if it was just a single token. I would say I'm salty at times because, man, tokens on top of everything else definitely adds to the complexities of how it all works. I don't think for GOG we've seen the true upside of having an ecosystem token yet. I think a lot of the measures over the past couple of years since its introduction have been sort of, to be blunt, stopgap to sort of get us through a moment in time. And we haven't seen the true GOG ecosystem really start to flow. With Gruff's Vault coming online, with Aries Store is coming online, like that ability for GOG to not just be part of Web 3, but also let you buy things in Web 2, that's sort of where I'm starting to get excited about the opportunities with what it can do. I don't think it's fulfilled its full promise yet, though. Cool. I'm sure there are additional questions in the mix, but I am already 3 minutes late for my next meeting crossed. I need to go pop off and hit that. The good news for all of you is it's a design meeting, so I can go hit them with my little mini list here of things to consider. So I will go do that. Thank you all for attending. I know these are long and always not at the bestest of times, particularly when you've got the sports balls launching. Appreciate your time, and I will catch you in a month at the next town hall. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Clay. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We got this recorded. We'll have it posted up within the next couple days at the latest, hopefully. So you guys can let people know that they can review the recording, and we'll have a summary posted of some of the key highlights of what we talked about here in Discord. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night or day.